Hey everyone, welcome back for another video. Today I have a speed drawing for you of a Dutch iris in colored pencil on Pastelmat paper. I love using Pastelmat paper for my color pencil projects. It's a high quality and archival textured paper that allows for multiple layering of the pencils. This piece is a white 16 by 20 size that I transferred my sketch onto using a light box. Because this was such a large size piece, I decided to create the background with watercolors and gouache. Using this technique is a lot more cost effective than using the pencils to fill in the background. To keep the watercolor from bleeding into my design, I used what's called a liquid frisket. It's like a rubber cement in liquid form. When it dries very rubbery and can easily be removed. I like to put my liquid frisket in an applicator bottle with a needle nose, that way I can get a lot more control when I'm outlining my design. Alright, here I am just adding some final touches onto my background. I ended up using metallic gold and metallic silver in Schminke gouache, and this just made a really nice design and just really added a lot of more of a modern contemporary feel to the piece, which I thought really complemented the colors of the iris. So let's fast forward a little bit. I'm a couple hours in already at this point, and I've already just laid down the foundational colors of the first petal of the iris, and I'm slowly building up the texture and the pattern of the leaf itself. Every time I start a color pencil project, I try to keep the same recipe in mind, where I'm always planning out my values first, planning out the local color. So I'm always laying down just foundational gradients first. So since this was more of a indigo type of a flower, those were the colors that I went to first, but I was primarily plotting out the values of those different shades of indigo. So using deep violets and deep blues to kind of create a sense of hue change while the value was changing in the form. And as I built up those initial foundations, I started implementing a little bit more pattern, a little bit more detail as I went, but it was a constant layering of getting those values down with adding some detail in sort of at the same time, but usually I generally get the gradients down first. Alright, so here I'm just starting to color in the center of the flower. This part was pretty tricky as there was a lot of form changes, trying to capture the curvature of the petal going several different directions and also changing color as it goes in and out of the light source. So that was very tricky to do, and I probably spent several hours on this section. This whole picture actually probably took about 40 hours to do. I know I have about 30 hours on film, and I know that I did a lot of work off camera too, so it was a monster of a piece. So here I am towards the center of the flower, and this is really where the focal point is that I wanted to draw attention to. It's got the most contrast in this area overall, and there's some really nice ambient colors that's being shared between the top petal and the bottom petal. There's some of those warm yellows being reflected sort of in the whitish pink part in the very center on the top petal. And it was a very sort of tricky area to get. So if you're ever doing a flower or something that has some reflective color and also a lot of folds, just really stop and take your time and look at the colors. There were so many different colors in this area that I didn't realize was going to be there. I actually ended up using, bright oranges and bright pinks, even though this area is very subtle. This left side of the flower is probably one of my favorite parts. I just love how the sun is just hitting just those slight edges of the petal, just giving a soft, warm glow to it. reached the end of this drawing, I realized that there was a lot of empty space that needed to be filled, so I decided to take a leap of faith and add in some leaves to the background. It was definitely risky to do that at this point because I really didn't know how the color pencil would behave over top of an already painted background with the watercolor and gouache. I did do some practice on a separate piece of paper and it looked okay there. So I just went ahead and did it, and I think the risk paid off, and I couldn't be more happy with how the composition finally pulled itself together. I hope you enjoyed the speed drawing of the Dutch iris. It's definitely one of my new favorite pieces that I've done. I don't do a lot of floral artwork, so this was a nice change of pace for me. And if you love it and would like to collect a print of this, I do have prints available of this piece on my shop at jhillfineart.com/shop.